Hello and welcome to another jungle tutorial and an updated jungle routes video guide. Yes, the crab is dead, but long live the crab because she is not gone completely. Instead of spawning at 2 minutes, she now spawns at 3:15. And as such, because Riot took so long to make these changes, junglers have forgotten what it's like to jungle without the scuttle crab dictating their routes. Now in this video, I will cover some of the most versatile and commonly used jungle paths that are enabling junglers to at least control one of the crabs as well as maintain lane impact. However, that early predictability in terms of the 2-minute scuttle is gone, so our jungle tracking is more important than ever, and naturally with that, our pathing and time efficiency. And as usual, please comment below the routes you are using on this patch and having success with. We will look at some of the top pathings you can use that have derived based upon these changes that give you the most options and versatility in your own games. All of that with fancy lasers, examples, and in-depth discussion following this.
League of Legends can come down to the finest details. Even the smallest item differences can cause a 1v1 to swing either way. So don't make a fool of yourself, make the smart choice, and head to u.gg to look at their Volta Runes feature, their runes win rate page, their build path stats page, as well as player profiles, tier lists, pro builds, all customizable by region to position, and find the hidden OP with u.gg in 30 seconds or less.
A champion has been slain.
Now, let's just recap what the stale meta had ended up being before the recent months where people were sort of adapting and mixing it up a bit. You would start your red, do your Krugs, maybe you go to the scuttle crab, maybe you vertical jungle, maybe you simply go to your raptors and then go to the opposite side scuttle, gank, do your jungle. It was all based around that 2-minute scuttle, but that is all gone now. However, the fact that it takes 4 camps to get to level 3 still dominates what junglers are used and how they are used. As such, going from red to Krugs to raptors is still a very common pathway, and a lot of the clears have pros and cons against each other, and because of the removal of the crab, we're going to just outline some of the options in this most commonly used path before we switch onto the other ones and give in-depth examples of the paths facing each other so you can see real world what actually happens when you do them. Now, the reason this is only one path with a bunch of options or the colors flying everywhere is because you have a lot of different ideas behind what you should do between the time you get level 3 and the scuttle crab spawning. Naturally, the most logical occurrence is to go and gank a lane, right? Make lane impact, fall back to the crab, have your level 3, and now you can carry on about your jungling world. In this case, one of the common factors is simply just to go gank mid lane. You're level 3 from the Krugs, Raptors, and red buff, and so it's very easy to have lane impact and then go and take a crab. Another option is to sort of try and force that vertical jungling invade meta by going and checking on the enemy's camps and perhaps stealing a blue if they are ganking on the other side of the map. Maybe you can even steal more. Usually, if you're a fast farmer, you'll have time to take one more camp before the scuttle spawns. Good use of time before getting a nice neutral objective. Additionally, if you have strong lanes or a farming jungler or someone who wants to contest that crab at level 4, you can do a full clear top to bottom, bottom to top, whatever suits you completely. Go back, get a Stalker's Blade or Skirmisher Saber, and then contest whichever crab you think the enemy jungler is going to be at, or go to the other one if you want to avoid them. So what you have there is 2 extremes of the same essential route that we've been using for the past year. One full clear, passive, not fighting, staying away from the river, which is very nice if you are a non-combative jungler. But as you saw on my stream the other day, when I went with Ornn, if you're not expecting to be invaded, maybe you're mirroring the other jungle, you don't know where they are, it's very easy to do a full red quadrant clear, take your blue, and the scuttle should spawn approximately as you finish that up. If you're a faster farmer, maybe you can do Grump as well. Obviously, Ornn is a little bit slower. And then from there, you can look to gank your mid lane, bot lane, top lane, depending on which side you started and which side is presenting the best ability to do so. So that's just a very fast summary. Don't worry, we're going to have examples of each of those in our discussion. But what counters this? I'm glad you asked. It actually counters itself. Now, in the Evelynn example, I just showed you Evelynn stealing. What I didn't show you was that the Taliyah on the other team did the same exact clear and showed very briefly trying to gank on the bottom side. Now before, you'd have a crab to fall back to immediately, and perhaps you just go vertical jungle and take Evelynn's blue side. However, in this case, because of the pathing nature, the timing of wards, the fact that people aren't going to be warding that pixel bush as much, Taliyah didn't know where Evelynn was. Taliyah showed on the map, and now, as with the olden days, when you show on the map, an enemy jungler can easily make a counter move that completely stifles you. In this case, the Evelynn takes her full top quadrant takes the crab, takes a whole bottom side because Tilia had no idea that the Evelyn was over there, and then upon the respawning of her Krugs and Raptors, Evelyn's already level 6, can invade the Tilia and take her out. That was very fast, wasn't it? Well, Tilia only got one corner of the map, had nothing else going for her, all because she did the exact same clear as Evelyn, but she showed first. So the next clear is one I'm seeing Jarvans doing, Kindreds can do, any aggressive jungler with a wall jump. People are still warding Pixel Bush, people are still warding Tribush for early level 2 ganks, so what you can do as Jarvan or Kindred is simply hop over the wall and invade the enemy's blue buff. Now, given that I was on, I was thinking I'm gonna do my full red side, nice and easy, no worries. I didn't know where Jarvan was, I assumed he would start on that top side, head to the bottom side, get that crab, so what I wanted to do was avoid fighting him and, do a simple clear and end up with a top side scuttle. Now, as you can see, when I reach my wolves, they're not there. And immediately, you see on the map, there's Jarvan. He had taken my entire top side without me knowing, circumnavigating the vision, and essentially doing what the Evelyn did to the Tilia, all by going from red buff and invading into my jungle. Now, fortunately, they make a bit of a greed play, mechanical error, I react, I get a double kill. Now, if you can do this, if you can, in fact, do your red quadrant and either make a turn on the enemy jungler like this, perhaps you get a gank off very nicely, perhaps you get an invade, you then have control at 315 to take both crabs. In this case, I fall back and take the bottom crab. People asked on stream, why didn't you push the lane out? Well, because it's Chaos, she's gonna TP in and I can take her out and then head to the top crab. That gives you complete map control and dictates the entire early game. And while this Ornn example of mine was a defensive reaction to getting 2 crabs, if you wanted to dictate the 2 crab take, it's very simple. You do your whole red side, you move on up, you can do your blue if you like, or you can simply react to the enemy junglers doing the same route and counter gank them on the top lane, or simply just go gank the top lane yourself, move on down, take that top side crab, then you can move on down and take the second crab, and now you have a 2-level lead because you got 3 camps, you got a kill, you got minion XP, you got both crabs, and you are in complete control. So any situation, whether you dictate it by your counter gank or by your early pressure, whether you react to being invaded and you make a nice play, if you can get 2 crabs at this stage in this meta, given the fact that the experience is higher when it spawns, don't waste the lead you have because at this stage, you are in control. So the red to Crux to Raptors is good still, gives you a lot of options. We just looked at that, I can show them back on screen now, a lot of options available to you. However, it does leave you susceptible to being invaded by enemy junglers who are better combatants, who have map mobility, and whom you now cannot track because that guaranteed vision from Crab no longer exists. Now let's return to our red buff and then invade route. The Kindred here does the same thing. Rank 1 career a few weeks ago, one of the best Kindred players in the world, simply brazenly walks over, takes the enemy Zin's blue, takes his Grump. The Zin has lost his mind, he has no idea what to do without the Scuttle Crab, and has gone from his red all the way to the top lane and gets collapsed upon, and now the Kindred is fed. So the idea of invading here is very interesting, and it's a very strong power move. You just need to make sure you know the matchup, and you understand that the enemy jungler perhaps is taking a longer time to reach this top side of the map. Another way to play this route that isn't as invadey is that you saw the Sejuani from a few minutes ago do a full clear, top to bottom, go back, buys her smite item, and then wants to go and contest that topside scuttle. So let's flash back to the beginning of this game and see what the enemy Jarvan did in the meantime. Well, he took his red and then level 2 gank top lane, because guess what? That still exists, and to buy the time, to free the time up between the 2 minutes and the 3:15, junglers can still go gank, take camps, and get level 3 and control the rivers. So you will see champions like Jarvan do this. Now, they can gank the top lane level 2, they can fall back to their Raptors, they can then do their blue and Grump, and be right in time for the first scuttle spawn. They also have the option, of course, of ganking mid on their way down. So this 1 camp and gank, 1 camp and invade is very strong if you have any vision of the enemy jungler and know where he is, or perhaps you have a much better read on lane states and have planned to do this from the beginning so you're very time efficient with it and you are able to get in and out without much trouble. So what clears maintain their existence despite the scuttle changes because your clear wasn't centered around taking the scuttle, much like the full clear we just discussed. Well, the single target path is the classic one. If you're Warwick, you start red, you move to the blue side, you do all of it. Same with Elise, start red, move to the blue side, do all of it. You can also start blue, do that whole side, move to the red. Either way, it's 4 camps to get level 3, and then look to gank before falling back to the scuttle. Emphasis on the gank there. And I'm sure you've seen the Elise doing the very standard clear gank, get the river control. It's pretty straightforward, and its effectiveness is only much better now, given that getting level 3 is crucial for some champions, and now they don't have to be forced into fighting in the river and navigating weird pathways just to get level 3. Finally, the interior clear still exists. The goal of going from buff to buff, and in between that doing your wolves and raptors, that's 4 camps, that's level 3, and now you can look to gank. If you started on the red side like the Samumu does, that's free gank on the top lane. Naturally, you are lower HP, so you don't want to go and blindly contest that bottom side scuttle, but you can always do your Krugs, go back to base, and get the bottom side scuttles. And that's the nice thing about the delayed spawn time. It gives junglers that are not really fighters between level 3 and 4 a chance to still guaranteed get an early crab without being too crabbed and invaded all the time. Alternatively, like this Nocturne, if you are a fast farmer and you can fit in that Grump before the Scuttle Crab and you don't want to gank, you can do so. You can also even go back to base to buy a Skirmisher Saber, so when you go and contest that Scuttle Crab, you have an added tool that can completely shut down the enemy if a skirmish were to develop. Just remember, because laners will be in phases of chunking each other down, fighting each other 1v1, maybe your laners died, maybe their laners died, lane priority won't be as simple as who's pushing level 1 to 2. It'll be completely about the lane states, so make sure you're using your minimap and your F keys, paying attention to the lane states when these crabs spawns so you don't get caught out being too greedy. Now to sort of bring together everything I've said, I know it's a lot of information, and if there's enough comments asking, I can perhaps organize screenshots for you and put them in the description, just let me know. But let's pull together one final example just to see the kind of things we're looking for in how we need to play them depending on the clear that the enemy jungler does. Now you saw the Rek'Sai earlier, he did his red side, he got a gank off. And what was the other option in this pathing? Well, I'm gonna go invade, maybe I can steal their blue away from them, go and try and 1v1 them, you know, the classic old thing before I fall back to my scuttle. However, if the enemy jungler, which in this case is a Kindred, and now we can watch their perspective, started on the blue buff, so the same side of the map as you, and did the single target pathing, well, when you gank mid lane and you show up with 12 CS and a red buff, that Kindred knows, after doing the full 3 camps on the top side and doing their own red, that bottom crab is theirs for the taking, along with your blue buff and Gromp. So decisions about showing too early in this meta, if the enemy jungler's route counters yours in terms of timings, you end up losing a full quadrant of the map and a substantial amount of experience. Now, but what's the cascading effect of this? Because we've only really focused on the super early phase. What is the net effect of the Kindred doing this to the Rek'Sai? Now the Kindred in this case has 2 options. Actually, just for reference, I think this is I Will Dominate's game. I collected a whole bunch of footage and couldn't relabel everything. He has 2 options here. He can do the Krugs on the bottom side after going back to base and then loop all the way to the top, getting the Rubber Banded experience on the blue side. Or, given that he knows the Rek'Sai went from red to Krugs to Raptors, as I've said many times, the camp you do after your buff, around 420-30, depending on the camp, depending on the champion, approximately in that range, will be respawning. So Kindred moves immediately all the way to the top side in order to steal those Krugs away before the Rex is able to get back. Why is this more important than doing their own camps? Well, because it's a rubber banded Krug camp, meaning it doesn't have the 30% reduced XP on the ancient Krug, and it will be level 4, that means that denial is absolutely cataclysmic for the Rek'Sai. It actually ends up being not so bad because as you see the Rek'Sai comes in, is able to take the Krug, but does in fact die, giving him back to the Kindred, and then the Ornn helps the Kindred kill the rotating Darius, and that's a sizable lead because they have the entire map to fall back on and say thank you very much, as well as control of the second Scuttle spawn. So, just be aware that because the Scuttle does not spawn at 2, the other pathings that exist can counter your moves when you want to invade and you say, well, they've taken everything. Now that they know where you are, well, they've got your whole bottom side. So keep this in mind when you're jungling, understand what the enemy jungler might want to do, and know that the whole goal is getting level 3, is getting a gank, and is getting at least 1 Scuttle Crab. So hopefully this can give you an idea of the complexities of how the new meta is shaping up. I will do a follow-up video if you are all interested. This is just introducing the possibilities you have along with the pros and cons. Optimal routes will develop for specific champions. Meta champions will change and cause that snowball knock-on effect that will affect the rest of the meta and what you do and so on. Be ready to experiment, be ready to lose some buffs, make sure your vision control is good, try some things out, but most importantly, don't forget to gank. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you were able to enjoy and learn something. Please like, share, and comment if you did. It really does help the channel. Consider subscribing for more League of Legends and Juggle videos just like this one coming very soon. And as always, I will see you all in the next tutorial.